Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a brand new day. I'm really excited today. Normally we'd be playing the Bazaar, but I do want to change it up a little bit. Because card games aren't the only games that I play. I'm actually really into roguelike games as well. And I found, I won't necessarily say I found a new game. This is a game that's kind of been on the radar for a while. And I'm excited to finally sort of like sink my teeth into it, as it were. But today, we're actually going to be playing a game that's in early access called Windblown, which is, it just seems really, really cool. You play as these anthropomorphic humanoid type of folks, and it's pretty much it's basically like Hades. It's isometric, not necessarily like top down, but like kind of. But anyway, isometric 1.5D, roguelike, fast-paced action, very vibrant and cool, and I'm certainly looking forward to it, because I don't know, it's so amazing. I did preview the game a little bit this morning, so it kind of plays more or less how I would expect. And I don't know. I'm planning to have some fun with this one today, and it's probably going to be the only one that we're playing right now. Like I said, it's in early access, so we'll see how things go. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So I am going to launch it now. Might as well kind of just hop in. But hopefully y'all are having a good day. I know it's Monday. It's the beginning of a new work week, and we'll just see how things kind of go from here, you know. But I'm super excited for this, like I said. So let's go ahead and switch on over to our gameplay here. And just kind of wait for this to load in. I do know that I did not install this on my SSD, so it does take a little bit to load in, but it's usually not too bad. Just a bit longer than usual. To be honest, I need a new SSD, because the one that I currently have is good, don't get me wrong, but it's just not a whole lot of space right now. I could definitely use more space, so but now that is loading in, we can go ahead and kind of fade that out there for a bit. Message from the devs: Dear guinea pigs, welcome to the early access of Windblown. Before diving headfirst, please note that our game is still in development. Some features are missing or incomplete. Your experience and feedback are crucial for the game's future. We're counting on you to let us know what's not working. We already know there will be bugs that'll make you laugh or cry. But hey, that's the beauty of development, right? Get ready to dive into the cheerful chaos, and thank you for being part of the adventure with us. Motion Twin, which is the developers here, so pretty awesome. I know it's best played with a controller, but you're going to be hearing me clicking and clacking about. So I'm actually going to be starting a new game. I already have 2 files. One I made by accident. Oh, can I not? Am I not able to? Hold on. Let me see. File 1. File 2. I don't think I can edit these. If not, then I'll just have to start off where I am. Because if I create a new save, that's just going to be something else. Okay, no. So if I go into file 2, I can start a new game there. So yeah, that's my Steam handle, by the way. If anyone is familiar with Team 4-Star and Dragon Ball Z Abridged, I think you'll recognize that a lot. So I believe last time I picked the Basilisk. Yeah, I believe I picked the Basilisk. It was the Basilisk or the Pangolin. I think we're gonna stick with the Basilisk though, because the Basilisk is blue, and it kind of fits in with the sort of my whole blue panther chameleon vibe type of deal. I mean, look how vibrant and beautiful this world is. Isn't this awesome? It's so cool. Okay, all right. It's very responsive, so yeah, pretty awesome. Okay, 3-hit combo. Oof. Kind of failed to dodge there. Oof. Okay. Yeah, and you can't see it because my avatar is blocking it right now. But there is a currency that you're picking up. You pick up like shells and gears. The shells act as like your gold, and the gears kind of act as like upgrade pieces for like skills, I think. Oh, damn. It's kind of animation locked there. But things are pretty cool. I do like I said, how sort of like quick and responsive, for the most part, the controls are, you know? So cool. This is such a cool, like, game and whatnot. You can play it solo, although you can also co-op up to 3 people. So, I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll play with some friends or whatnot. So here, you're basically absorbing the soul of someone that is, fallen and died. And you get to absorb like a skill from them. So, I think I'm going to go with proximity, since I'm pretty close ranged. So cool. So fucking cool. So when we get those, we unlock skills so that we can get them from like those memories later. Which is really fucking neat. Like I said, this game is so awesome. Ooh. Okay. Actually, was there anything left over here? There's not. Nope. Okay. Raven Blade. Criticals after third strike. Held jump attack. Okay. Ah. Nice. Okay. I like it. I like it. Oh, right. Got it. Do not destroy me, pacifist. Okay. BF for ha 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 ha. Okay. Return. Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. Oh, hello. So we feed this guy our gears, and I think he stores them for when we end up going back to like the main hub. So woo. Nice. Hey, ultra laser. Okay, so that's left trinket, which is Q. Got it. Is there another path? No, there's not. Okay. Cool, cool. Oh, it's these guys. Woo! Oh, you son of a bitch. Fucking dodged my shit. Okay, so right or left? I'm gonna go left. Oh my gosh. Nice. Ooh. Okay, so we just used our ultra laser there. Ow. Oh god. Ah. Okay, and so yeah, it's pretty much that happens, and then you end up going back to the hub, which again, if you played Hades, it's pretty similar. So yeah, nothing like puking on somebody when you recover from death. Ah, cool. so health flask, 60% of your HP. Okay, nice. Looks like we don't have enough to unlock anything. Training dummy. Okay. Ah, got it. Got it. Oh, hey, there's the guy. I think we need a core. Yeah. Right. Okay. Got it. Doesn't look like I can do anything with that yet. Nothing there. Interesting. Not really sure what that's for. Alright. So we talked to this guy. Do we get to go back out on a mission? No. Here? No, it doesn't look like it. Ah, of course. Right. Two brain cells indeed. Alrighty. Okay, so we start off with the knife, fish knife, and the potion, which is our middle button. Okay. Got it. Broken mech. Ow. Okay. Deals criticals against burning targets, last strike, or applies burn. Oh wow. Holy shit. That's fucking cool. Okay. Okay, I'm about it. Let's see. We get there from here? Yes. Damn. That makes things so much easier. Well, kind of. I feel like I'm faster as a melee. Nice. Frost Nova. Okay. Okay, buddy. There we go. It definitely has its drawbacks, that's for sure. Oh, so it can go through terrain. Neat. I wasn't sure if that was possible or not, but I guess so. Oh, right. Okay. Nice. We cannot go that way. Okay, good to know. Great. Is this like a mini boss? Is that why there's that skull there? Intense burn. Burn max stacks plus 15 for the team. Damage 10% for each stack. Saves you from death once. Ignore the first hit in each biome and become invincible for 5 seconds. We're gonna go with burn because right now we're using burn primarily. So, okay. It doesn't look like there's a way to go there, so I guess we go back. Okay, nothing. Mark zone. Strikes, then marks nearby enemies. Hit mark foes with your weapons to unleash lightning and deal heavy damage. Wow. Okay. So that's Q. Wow, that guy got instantly vaporized. Holy shit. Oops. Nice try, buddy. Ooh. Katars. Backstabs, deal criticals, held dash behind your target. Okay. Yep. We're definitely replacing that there. Okay, and so we hold. Oh. I like it. I like it. Nice. Shells looted by team 20%. Crit damage plus current and HP. Yeah, let's go with that. Oh. Using a trinket activates rush. Your next dash deals damage and stuns. But we have to give up 40 HP. That's a lot. Sure, why not? Let's just use our potion right there. Okay. Nice. Okay. Okay, nothing else. That was just alternative path. Very cool. Ooh. Please don't. domes. This is ominous. Okay. Not liking where this is going. Okay, you long rangers need to go. Nice. Weapons and effects apply 1 burn, 6 DPS for 4 seconds. Incandescent burn. Burn damage rate 25% for the team and duration 50%. Duplicated mark. When you unleash a mark, it hits a second time for 50% of the original damage. Oh man. Ooh. I actually like burning weapons. Oh, it's this dude. Okay. Alright. That was weird. Oh, okay. Got it. Ow. Ooh. Alright, cool. What is this? Heavy blade? Okay. Got a new thingy. Let's see. You'll have to replace one of your gifts. Cogs looted 20%. Every 250 base damage, you deal spawn scythe 30 DPS for 5 seconds. 2 marks merge into a stronger one that deals 50% damage, stackable as a team. Interesting. Or we could just get 60 whatever the hell's. Oh, it activates rush. Then we're gonna go with this and replace this one. Oh, nice healing pool. Very cool, very cool. Okay. Interesting. I guess this is like a shop. Kills refill trinkets by 5 seconds. Deals damage to nearby enemy targets repeatedly. Oh, it's a second trinket. Neat. Applies 1 bleed. Criticals extend duration by 2 seconds. Okay, I was wondering why there were 2. Health flask recharge. I like Blade Storm. We're gonna go with that. cute monstrous koi fish. Oh, right. Oh, pretty neat, right? I love this. It's so cool. Okay. Ow. Okay. Use one weapon until the mark signal appears, then use another weapon to launch its alter attack. Oh, wow. Okay. Oops. Ow. Kunai. Ouch. Yeah, down here. Those are mines. Pretty obvious. Okay. Nothing else, huh? Okay. Interesting. Yeah. It's probably worth it. Hello. Sorry if I missed that. I'm sorry if that's far away. How's it going, man? Welcome back to the stream. Hopefully you're having a good day. Again, I apologize for the late response. I kind of am really taken by this game, so... Oh, ow, ow. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Nice. That's a lot of cogs. Yeah, let's go with this zip line. Why not? Ouch. Oh, I'm not using my stuff. I'm doing fine, just chilling for now. Hey, chilling's good. Nothing wrong with chilling. Nice. Ooh. Vicious. We open that? No, we can't. Well, I'm glad. I was afraid that you were getting stressed out from League again, which would be not good. No bad junglers today, at least not right now. Okay. Ow. Ooh. Oh, death. Kind of excited because tomorrow's my birthday. Oh, well, happy early birthday. I hope it's a really fun one for you tomorrow. Right, do you have any plans? You going out to eat? You gonna hang out with friends? I don't know, maybe spending time with a partner? Let's see if we can... Oh, okay. Got 149. Receive a weapon at the start. Builds a flying bark to store... Oh, really? Okay. Backstabber. Neat. Okay, so we've got some stuff here. Oh, that's cool. I want to get that one next time. Let's talk to you. Right. Nope, just looking to play solo right now. Just kind of sad it's on a weekday, so not too much I can do for now. True. When birthdays fall on weekdays, it's kind of hard to get something together. I understand that. Oh, cool. So you're the guy that unlocks the stuff. Oh, that's awesome. So you have to time it right. Okay. Oh, right. Got it. So that's what that's for. Let's get the Frost Nova then. Okay, so Kunai, Heavy Blade, Burn Aura. Nice. Cool. Ah, that's so awesome. I love it. Okay. Oh, so you can change the character you want to be. Well, I'm sticking with the Basilisk, so interesting to know. I'll keep that in mind. Can't do anything with you yet. Oh, right. Okay. Cool. Explore the vortex. Got it. Well, regardless of it being on a weekday, like I said, hopefully it's a good one tomorrow. So again, happy early birthday. Ooh. Yes, please. Nice. Okay. And if we had that one skill, we could turn that into the shells. Unfortunately, we do not. I'll just have to remember that. Ouch. Oh, that's pretty neat. Oh, I actually like that. I wasn't initially a fan of dodging around, but the idea that you can still time your attacks through the dodges is cool. Ooh. I would like a power up there. Nice. What is this? Bro. Bleed aura or shells. Applies 6 bleed to nearby foes, then gives bleed infusion to nearby leapers. Interesting. Oh, I haven't been using frost, huh? Briefly. Okay, let's try it. Let's see. I think this is the shuriken? Memmonite dust? I'm curious. Oh, Ninja Star is very... Oh, we can get both. I thought we could only get one. Alright. Great. Nah, we're gonna skip that. Trinket refill, crit. Let's go attack speed. Ouch. Okay. Probably just gonna go out and have dinner somewhere. Oh, okay. Is that what you usually do for your birthday? Where do you think you'll go? Like, or what to eat? Like, curiously. It's pretty rough. Anything up here? There is some stuff. Yeah, mostly. I feel that, I feel that. Ooh. jank, but it worked out. Sure, even though I probably shouldn't do this at the health that I'm at right now. Nice. Don't really know. Depends on the mood. Feel that, I feel that. Ooh. Alright. Nah. Ooh. I like it, I like it. Uh-oh. Ouch. Nice. I'm glad they have those prompts in there. Normally I'd be a little too focused to pay attention. Ouch. Okay. Ultra laser. Nice. Oops. Ooh. Okay, nothing over there. Okay. Damn, dude. Fuck. Got swiped. Jesus. Okay. Actually, what do we have? Can we upgrade anything or get stuff? 94, and we've only got 2 of those, so new. Oh, guitar again. Alright. Ouch. was that? Well, that was interesting. That was like a really weird mirrored effect that I've never seen before. Okay. Actually, was there anything over here that I missed before we move on? No, not really. Okay. Oof. Yeah, let's go with that. We will try the Raven Blades, which does remind me of a friend whose online handle is Raven Blades. So, ouch. Yes, thank you. Nice. Death Orb. Oh shit. Ouch. Bleed Aura. Why not? That's a silly animation I'll never get tired of. Nice. I don't know if I have invincibility frames during that. I'm just gonna assume no. Oh god. Ouch. Ooh. Really not a fan of these laser enemy guys. Oh, right, I can skip that. Okay. Alright, I've got new stuff. I could probably take it to the robot. Can't unlock any of it right now, though. Alright, back we go. Excuse me for a second. Okay. Sorry about that. Scirocco. Let's go. I think this is my favorite weapon so far. Even though it does leave you quite vulnerable. Just have to be mindful of the long animations in between. What do we got? Incandescent burn. Very nice. Okay. Cogs? I think we want to go this way. Nice try, buddy. Nice work. Goo dodge? I don't even know what that means. But okay. Abundance. Boost stock. Kills. Okay, yeah. Let's do that. Goo dodge. Does that leave behind like a slime clone or something? I don't know. Seems kind of weird. Nice. I guess we go back. Cogs? 'Cause why not? I didn't realize the combo was still going. What the hell? Nothing there. Okay. Oh. Guitars again. No, thank you. I am okay. It just keeps going. Okay. What do I currently have? 40 health, weapon trinket damage 40% while near your target. We'll skip. cool. These are not very cool. Ooh, shit. Not a fan of that. No, thank you. Nice. Yeah. Objectively, that's just better. Uh-oh. Die, please. Thank you. Appreciate it. El bro, let's go. Nothing. I was actually expecting a fight up here. Guess further down. Here we go. Ooh. Good invincibility frames. Hit blast. Okay. Burn. Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Let's heal up. Okay. Memmonite dust. Goo bomb. Inflicts goo and damages foes for 4 seconds. Targets are unable to move. Okay, so goo dodge probably leaves goo on the ground and it immobilizes enemies. Neat. Deadly refill. Kills refill trinkets by 5 seconds. Fish knife. Nah. Let's try the bomb. Why not? Cool, cool. New area, or next area rather. Let's go. Let's go, let's go. Ouch. Good to know. Sure, why not? Uh-oh. It's this guy. Nice. Oh, cool. Got some dust too. All about it. Think this is gonna trigger a fight. Yeah. Ooh, I've never seen you before. And I do not like you. Oh my god. Okay. Jesus. I have to say, not a fan. I was hoping to get the invincibility frames before that. Shit. Deadly extension. Yep. Uh-oh. What the fuck? Ouch. Jesus. Okay, that has some reach. Ooh. Intense. Fireball. Deadly brutality. Oh. Yeah. I guess we're going full burn, huh? Oh my god. Ouch. Cool. Crystallize. Weaken a strong target until the symbol appears, then press shift to execute them and collect their vital essence. Oh, really? Neat. Okay. Wow. Oh. That looked like it was part of the background. Ooh. Right. Ah, damn it. Wasn't really sure which one to tackle there. But, alright. Okay. Got it. So right now there isn't a whole lot of winds, but eventually there will be. And then the island will get sucked into the vortex. Interesting. Hey! Jark? How's it going? Thanks for stopping by the stream. Hopefully you're having a good day. And again, I do apologize if I have delayed responses. Just kind of really absorbed into the game. But I hope you're having a good one. Okay. Alright, starting trinket. I do want this, so we're definitely getting that. That way we can get more stuff. Ooh, neat. Let's do this. And I guess we'll save up, huh? Why do you have red? Oh, okay. Got it. It's going. How's the stream been so far? You know what? Not too bad, actually. Just getting into a new game and having a lot of fun. Yeah, going pretty good. Going pretty good. Heavy blades. Goo dodge. Dodge applies goo for... Oh. Interesting. Perfect dodge. Dodging an attack at the last moment reflects part of the damage towards the attacking foe. Oh, cool. I wonder... Heavy blade or goo dodge? I want to go with blade. E. Oops. Wow. is... oh, you're up here. Oh, I didn't even know you could get up here. What the fuck? Okay, cool. Oops, there we go. Yeah, stream's been great. You know, we've been going for about a little less than an hour and a half, and I don't know, it's been really nice. It's been really nice. So, recycle. Okay. Nope, can't get over there. Ooh. Heavy blade is alright, I think. I just have to be more deliberate with my attacks. Let's recycle you. That is perfectly fine. Nice. So satisfying. I love it, I love it, I love it. Okay, okay. Appreciate you, thanks. God, I don't know. I love this game. It's so cool. Oh, don't want to get hit by that. Can't go there. This is fine. Uh-oh. Oof. Damn, they just keep wanting us to have those, huh? Oh, can't miss you. There we go. I would have figured that seemed like an arena for a fight, and yet there wasn't anything to fight there. Uh-oh. Okay, the window for that's pretty small. Sure, let's get that for now. Oh, wow. That's so fucking cool. Ooh, don't like that. Okay. Interesting. How do we get to you? Is there a path here? There is. Ouch. It's the first hit I've taken in a while. Follow the wind. Okay. Oh, okay. Got it. Just wondering why there was nothing to fight. Raven Blade? Nah. I have never seen this symbol before. Oh, okay, so it actually takes us to the ship. 20%, 40%. Refill. Alright, we'll get one of yous. Nice. Okay, there was nothing there. Just making sure. I have like a hoarder brain when I play stuff with like RPG mechanics. So critical. Actually, let's go with attack speed. Ooh. I do want it. I don't know if y'all are the same, where you feel like you have to hoard stuff in RPGs and then you just like never use them. Didn't get the finishing move. Just keep remembering that. Let's go with necromancy. Boss killer. Healing pool, let's go. Very nice. Do you play similar games like this, Jark? Ooh, I don't have enough for a whole lot. I can get Memnite Dust though, let's do that. Do you like roguelike, Hades type of stuff, or what kind of games do you like? Oops, there we go. Oh, we are just flying through that level now. Much easier compared to like 2 cycles ago. You gonna reach me from that far away? What the fuck? bleed or I don't like either of those. I think I'm just gonna get money. Katara nap. Oh, don't like you. There we go. Because fuck that noise. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Maybe I should remember to use my trinkets. I always forget that they're there. Fair enough. Nope. Charged blade. Okay. Neat. Oh, hey. Didn't even know you were over here. Raven. Nah. Ooh, boss. Yep. Taking a lot of damage. I need to have more shift on the ready. Still not doing that habitually. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Sure, let's do that. Anything here? Did not miss. Okay. Okay, never mind. Ooh. Recycle. Ow. Ow. Okay. Really? I guess because I dodged back? Maybe I should have dodged into him. Well, egg on my face, I guess. Damn. Enhanced crystallize. Crystallize now refills your trinkets by 30 seconds against mini bosses and bosses by 15 against elites and by 5 against the rest. That's actually kind of cool. Can I afford that? Hold on. Oh, I can. Damn. Well, yeah. Broken jars sometimes contain food. Oh, wow. Secret areas. Oh, and as I unlock more things, these get unlocked too. I think we're gonna go for abundant jars next. Wow, 40% extra damage. Holy shit. Interesting. Criticals refill trinkets by 1 second up to 6 times per second. Oh, okay. Well. So there's still someone over there. They don't have anything, so I guess back to the expedition. Okay. That is fine. That is fine. Bomb. Sure. Sure, let's get some guitars. Why not? Please die. Ouch. Yep. More cogs. Just straight blow shit up. Makes sense to me. Nice. You. Burning trinkets, okay. Blade Storm, 30 health, nah. Ow. was that? Huh. That's weird. No, there's no way to get over there. Okay. Ow. Yes, yes, yes. Come on. Here we go. Oh. That is not what I wanted to do, but okay. Very good, very good. Sure. Tough battle ahead here. Sure. Yeah, let's replace the knife. Why not? Well, so I don't know where the music went, and I'm not using my trinkets apparently. Oh, whatever. Uh-oh. Ow. Damn. Alright. That's fair. I think I need 5 to get one of these things over here. I could get burning trinkets, but critical refill, goo dodge. Not really. Kunai. That's pretty cool. Alright. Bomb again, and I think that's heavy blade. Let's try to remember to use them this time. Okay. Cool. Okay, this one doesn't have a hold function. Okay, good. Bomb is back up. see. That's really neat. Okay, so there are hidden paths. I guess that's what the, that explains the mirror. Why it gets all distorted. Cool, cool. Oh, damn. Oh, I think I accidentally used the bomb. Shit. Yep. Really want a distance weapon. Maybe we'll be lucky and we'll find the, Scirocco. Or however you pronounce that thing. Okay. Damn. Echo. Ooh, I wonder if that's like a double attack type of thing. Like a mirror image. Thank you. Well, how about that? Oh, ah, shit. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that at all. There's a chest over there? How do I get over there? Okay. Beat bolt. Yeah, let's get rid of the Raven blade. Is it possible to get back that way, I wonder? Damn, this thing is way far back. What the hell? Oh. How the hell did I miss you? Okay. Well, I'm glad that there's that way marker on there. That's fucking cool. Alright, up and around. We'll pass on you. Nice. Grenade. Bomb and grenade. Okay. Well, bomb is just directly within my purview. It looks like grenade is actually thrown. Yep. It sure is. Do prefer you over beat bolt. even though Beat Bolt is technically faster. Okay, we're not gonna miss you. Because you're right there. Sorry about that, just give me a second. Okay. All right. Pack time. Nice. Ooh. Nice try, Bozo. Ow. Oh, come on, man. Ugh. Boost. Well, here we go. Fair enough. Speed. Yeah, why not? Actually, since we can have a pause in the action, I will be right back. Okay. That was pretty quick. Don't forget to hydrate, folks. Ah, precious healing. Love it. Let's go. What do you got for us today? Memmonite dust. Shielding crystallize. Ooh. Maybe. Grenade. Heavy blade. What's our heavy blade at right now? Level 1. Maybe. I actually like crystallize. Although I do need to get sort of more into the habit of actually using that, so we'll give it our best shot. Good old college try. Actually, good finds. Ouch. What are you? Cursed hits. Okay. Guitars. Nah. Ooh. Too bad I can't afford a lot of this stuff. Well, not that I need to anyway, but that's cool. Fair enough. Really hate those guys. Oh. That's interesting. Oops. There we go. Ooh. Hey. Uh-oh. Ow. Not too bad. We're getting sort of the hang of remembering to get those shots in there, but nah. Yes, please. A boost would be nice. Nice try, asshole. Ah, missed it that time, though. Uh-oh. Nice. Okay, okay. Ow. Yeah, because I usually just forget. So we can just have a guy that just attacks, and then every once in a while I'll remember to actually use its ability. Nice try. Oh, guy sneeze. Oh, that's the worst feeling in the world. Now I'm gonna sneeze at a very inopportune time because I wasn't able to do that before. Awful, awful, awful. When you unleash a mark, launch an alter attack. Sure, why not? In fact, let's replace you. Back we go. Nice. Let's do that. Get you. Heavy blade, yes please. I do not know if level 3 is max, but it seems like it. Oh, really? Damn. It looks like your dodge is just wide enough to get in, but you need to be pretty precise with that. Noted. Yes, please, abundant jars. Variant bait, updrafts. I think the next thing I'll probably get is health flasks. Replicate 105% of the damage dealt after 0.7 seconds. Oh, it's a delayed attack. Interesting. Curse. Each stack increases damage dealt to target. At 10 stacks, triggers a final curse that doubles the total bonus for 4 seconds. Neat. Ooh. Oh, Kunai applies curse. That's pretty cool. Alright, let's unlock Ninja Stars. Ooh. Okay. I like it. Oh, hello. Molluskio. First attempt? No, that was the second time. But hello and welcome to the stream. Yeah, no, that was my second attempt. And it was pretty bad. So... yeah, pretty new to this game. Just started playing it today. It's a lot of fun, I have to say. Ouch. Just started playing this weekend too. Cool, cool. Is there a particular favorite weapon that you have right now? Do I go full? Do I go full ranged? I don't know. Did you play Dead Cells? Really like the Beat Bow? Beat Bow's pretty nice. I did play Dead Cells for a little bit. I think... Aren't they recently done, like, updating the game? As far as, like, major updates and stuff like that? Maybe I'm thinking about another game. But I played Dead Cells for a while, and then when their Castlevania collab started, I came back for a little bit. Pretty fun stuff, though. Really like it. Do I go full ranged? You know what? Let's try it. Why not? Yeah, Dead Cells is pretty much done. This is the game Motion Twin started working on when they handed off Dead Cells DLC to Evil Empire. Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, I'm not like super familiar with the backstory of everything, but I don't know. I mean, I must say, coming from Dead Cells and then going to this, that's pretty cool stuff. Sure, let's do that. Very cool. Let's go with attack speed. It's so fast and fluid. I don't know. I just love this game. And that the fact that it's in early access too is pretty wild. I mean, if this is the quality of game that we're getting, they can keep that up, then yeah, this is definitely going to be a success. Sure, why not? I think it will be, but yeah, I love the pacing of the combat and the whole vibe of the game. It's so cool. Like, it's so vibrant, and I don't know, I love it. I love it. Cool. Okay, nice. Tranquility. Glad I did not miss that. I know, I feel like this is a game I'm gonna put like hundreds of hours into. But that's just me. I don't know. Might be a little too presumptuous, but it certainly feels like it. I haven't found any mirrored stuff yet. Or not really mirrored, but it's kind of what I'm calling it. Nice. Hidden pocket dimensions and whatnot. Nice. Cogs, shield, mark, yeah. Ooh, boss time. Wow. I think that's the fastest I've beaten that guy. Okay. Yeah. Ooh, healing time. Let's go. do you got for me today? Grenade, mark zone, Memmonite dust, duelist. Oh wow. I'm not even using my trinkets. I think I'm just gonna go for the dust. Yeah. All right. Nothing. Okay. Works for me. Trinket scythe. Cool. Oh, actually, no, I can't get across there. Okay. What the hell? That works. Fish knife, no, thank you. Well, that's a tease. Alright. Fine. Easy peasy. Yeah. All right. Nothing. Nah. Oh, another wave platform. Okay. You know, actually, I probably should have just gotten the upgrade, but whatever. That's fine, that's fine. Oops. Beat bolts. We'll stick with the current setup. Ooh, boost and a boss. Let's go. Ooh, forgot to do the shift there. Man, I'm really bad at using my trinkets. My DPS could be so much better. Nice. Oh. Cogs could. Oh, it does go above level 3. Guitars. Deadly refill. Cogs it is. Oh, there you go. You can't go back up. Very cool. Duplicated mark. Grenades. No. Okay, here we go. Damn it. Dodged too early. Although what I really needed to do was have the boss actually hit that, instead of being stubborn about shit. That's on me. What was I doing next? Oh right, flask. Okay. Trinket, weapon. 3 and 3. Using a trinket spawns a scythe. Interesting. So there's some currencies that I don't have. I imagine you get these from bosses or by completing a run, maybe. Alright, fair enough. Back at it. Ooh. Hello? Okay. Thought I was missing something there. What the fuck? It passed right through him. What the hell? Okay, nothing over there. Fine. Oh, I missed. Fine, fine, fine. Sure. Oh, hello. Gladly. Perfect timing. Ow. Nice. Power refill. Oh, hey, look at that. Oops. Thank you. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, some fruit would be good, yeah. Raven Blade, sure, why not? Well then. Cool. Fireball, no. Yeah, let's go, since we're on that pathway, why not? Would have been really sucky to get fruit there. Shielding Crystallize, Frost Nova, Health Flask Recharge. Oh, right, we have 2 now. Ultra Laser level 3. Yeah. Pretty obvious choice, but regardless. Okay, let's see if we can get back to that guy. Oops. Pressing wrong button. There we go. Whoop. Didn't mean to do that. Back up. There we go. Good job. Now we can go down. Chest? Yep. Nope. Ooh, boost. Use the boost to get through. Bomb or Raven Blade? I think we're gonna go bomb. Even though I basically barely used my trinkets. Fine. before we go there... Okay. There is nothing. Alternate path, okay. Hold on. Ah. Damn. Sure. Nice, thank you. Ignore the first hit each biome and become invincible for 5 seconds. Eh. Oh, hello. mirror spots, okay. Doesn't say what level of bomb that is, so... Oh, nope. Ouch. Oh my god. Okay. That was kind of sad, to be honest. Shit. Extremely worried. Oops. Oh, what? What the fuck? Whatever. God damn it. Animation locked myself. Like an idiot. Alright. Additional loot. Updraft. Boosted boosts. Yeah. Oh, we only got one because we died, right? Weapons refill your trinkets. Depending on their damage, the amount increases exponentially through base damage up to 2.5 seconds. Really? Kinda cool, kinda cool. Filling crystallized. Scythe. Hit blast, maybe? An echo. Alright, maybe another run or two. Ooh, beat bolts. Arc zone. Very cool. Oops. Almost missed y'all up over there. This way. Nice. Sure. Always take more of those. Ooh. Yeah. Nothing, okay. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Ouch. Sure. Nope. Oh, whoa. You can... What? I didn't know you could jump that high. What? What the fuck? Is that a bug? Ah. A little too slow in the uptake there. Good combo. One of the few times I'll actually sell you instead of taking it. Ultra laser, yes please. That works too. Cool beans. All about it. Yeah, critical mark, why not? Yep. Nova, alter mark. Fish knife, ultra laser. It's currently at level 2. Okay. Thank you. Nice one. Bleeding weapons, very cool. Damage. Sure. Okay. Hopefully I didn't need the other skill for this one. Oh, looks like maybe, yeah. No longer blasting. Okay. So you do need blast for enhanced blast to work. Interesting. That is a darned shame. Nice. Heavy blade, no thank you. Okay. Oh God. What? Right when I was gonna launch my attack? Damn. Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. I think we're gonna go with updrafts on this one. And then we'll do one more run. I do like kunai, so we're gonna go with that. Gifts. think we're gonna hold off because I want to get either boss killer or cursed hits. All right, let's go. Final run of the day. Heat bolt. Ultra laser, of course. Nothing up there. No. Okay. Nice. Oddly enough, recycle. That works too. You know, we haven't really gotten fruit from a jar in a while. It must be pretty rare if that's the case. Dash mark, meat. Okay, really satisfying weapon. I like it. Cool. Sure, let's just get it, why not? Can fill the space. Oops, missed that one. That's okay. Ouch. Okay. Pretty grim there. Pretty grim. Yeah, necromancy for sure. We're playing it a little too loose here. But thankfully, we've got the healing pool. Dust. Yeah, we definitely need that. All right. I don't know. Overall, I mean, I think this is a fantastic game. Would highly recommend to anyone that, you know, likes this type of thing. Very, very cool. So much style. Very good. There we go. Oh, too soon. Please do not hit me with that. Okay. Oop. All right. Cool, cool. Yeah, why not? Why not? Looks like we're going almost full curse for this one. Is that the way we're supposed to go? It looks like it. All right. Very nice. Oops. Oh, don't want to do that. We are happy with our weapons right now. Nope. Nah. That was some unnecessary damage, unfortunately. Anything over here? Nope. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Nah. Well. Okay. Very cool. Actually, okay, no. RPG instinct said go that way, and was technically right. What the hell? Okay, no thanks to whatever that is. Good lord. Okay. Speed. Very nice. Ah, gotcha. Protection. We definitely need one of those. So I will gladly purchase a refill. Wondering how we would get over there. Durr. Damage, please. So much range. Okay. Let's just take that. Oof. Another wave. Okay. Okay. That is not the one I wanted to target, but okay. Please stay away from me. Damage. Yeah, let's go for it. Oh God. Ouch. Oh man, I was doing so good too. Shit. Alright, here we go. damn it. Ah. Alright. It's the furthest we've gotten. We could probably have it in probably our next couple of runs or so, but I'm kind of tapped out, to be honest. A lot of fun. It was really, really cool. Alright. I think it saves when we go back to the title screen. Progress will be kept. Yep. Yeah, pretty awesome. Man, what a crazy game. I don't know. I love it a lot. This is really awesome. And the fact that it's only in early access right now is, I don't know, it kind of blows my mind. It seems extremely polished. I mean, there are some things that probably could be worked on as far as balance, but overall, I think it's really, really fantastic. Again, the game that we're playing today is Windblown, so I would highly recommend, checking it out. Oh, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Appreciate it a lot. But yeah, pretty sick. So, all right. Well, I'm actually going to head out here. So let's get back on over. I want to just say, thank you so much, for joining me on sort of this new journey today. It was a lot of fun. Had a good time. I love games like this, so whenever I find a new sort of game to sink my teeth into, roguelike elements, all that stuff, play smooth. It's always something to look forward to. So this was a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to be playing it again on stream. I'm not really sure when the next stream's going to be, but usually I start stream around 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on any given day, to get all the updates and all that stuff, as far as when I'm streaming and whatnot, is obviously, if you follow me here on Twitch, and then also you follow me over on Twitter or X or whatever, I usually post about when I'm going to stream or if there are any changes, if I'm pushing the stream back, that type of thing. But I think that's going to be it for today. It was really productive, a lot of fun, and thank you all so much for joining me again on sort of this journey here. So without further ado, I do hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one, hopefully, which trying to get into a bit of a rhythm, a bit of a routine. So hopefully within the next couple of days or so, we'll have another stream and we can keep making this a more consistent thing. But until then, whenever it is, please have like I said, a great rest of your day, and I will see you hopefully next time. Goodbye.